Before I get started, I do consulting on where you can move. I'll work with you to find the perfect place for you to move to. There's more information at the end of the video about that. Now let's get started. The Redneck Riviera, the whitest sand beaches in the world, the Gulf Coast, ghettos, hurricane damage, trashy parties. Everyone's heard of the Redneck Riviera. This stretch of coast got its name because of its strong southern culture, and I mean strong. It's in the Florida panhandle, which is often referred to as Lower Alabama. Much of it up here is less expensive to live in than down in South Florida, and in many areas up here it's very poor and run down. But this stretch of beach has also been a hotspot for tons of trashy party people who come here to get drunk and cause problems. But those days might be coming to an end. So of course I had to see it, and I went there. It was early May, so it wasn't too hot and sweltering out. Actually, as I would learn by the end of my Florida adventure, I think early May is the best time to come to Florida. The crowds are at a minimum, and it's not too hot and buggy out. Yuck. To get there, I took Route 331 south from Defuniak Springs to the coast. I just spent a couple days in the rural part of the panhandle to see what it looked like these days. I was impressed. As we'll see, the Redneck Riviera is a little bit of everything. It has some of the prettiest water in the country and some very nice neighborhoods. But a lot of this region's poor and crime-riddled too. Some parts of the area are decent enough, but the drugs, the poverty, the cost of living, and the constant abuse from out-of-towners is weighing this place down. We're gonna take a drive up and down this old coast. This place is sure a-changin', I think you should know. So what is the Redneck Riviera anyways? It's a stretch of beach from Pensacola all the way down to Panama City. This 100-mile length of coast has a little bit of everything. My goal was to find the good and the bad areas, show off the beaches, and find out, why is this place called the Redneck Riviera? What's it like to live here? And is it really all that? But I have to say, this area of the country is not quite what I expected. We're going to begin our tour of the Redneck Riviera in West Pensacola. Pensacola has a population of 52,000 people. It's not super fancy here. As we'll see in a bit, downtown's really nice, but there's large parts of Pensacola that are straight up run down. Now, I had been told West Pensacola is in a bad spot these days, but I was not expecting what I saw. As an out-of-stater, I never hear about how rough Pensacola is, but this place looked like a hurricane had just come through. The trash, the abandoned houses, loose dogs. There's a lot of abject poverty here. In Pensacola proper, 18% of residents live in poverty. And crime-wise, it's really bad here too. Like 99% of U.S. cities are safer. Just tragic. This whole part of town over here is usually very sketchy with drive-bys and shootings, especially in the early morning hours. There's hookers, drug dealers, and pimps walking around here all the time. West Pensacola is not a place you want to raise your family. Now, I'm foreshadowing when I say I'd see something very similar in Panama City the next day. But Panama City has an excuse. It had just been torn up by a hurricane. One big problem here is the cost of living. Even though the average home in Pensacola is $230,000, which is dirt cheap, there's just so many out-of-state buyers moving down here that a lot of the poor people are getting priced out. This part of the state, like many others, is marketing itself to rich people to the detriment of current residents. It's a topic I'm going to talk about a lot in this Florida series. The lack of affordable housing in Florida is the worst it's ever been, and smart people are sounding alarms. Florida is the least affordable state of all. A few sensationalist news sites are even claiming Florida could be the next California because of the spike in housing costs and the growing homeless problem here. Oh no, you don't want that. Some people are calling for rent control in this part of Florida, but that's been proven to only raise rent for a lot of people. When you control the rent, you're going to disincentivize developers from building cheap units. And all the gentrification happening all over Florida means neighborhoods like this one I'm in now might not be here at all one day. Now, there are some nice areas in Pensacola. I had heard of a neighborhood called East Hill that folks said was great, but I didn't think this historic neighborhood was that nice. I mean, it's middle class, and the homes have nice big yards, but this is the nice area? Along the water, there are some really nice neighborhoods which have views of the Pensacola Bay. That's cool. Good for you guys. Now, downtown Pensacola is a different story. It's absolutely splendid downtown. This little section of town's really improved over the past 10 years. It used to be a boring one-way street, and now it's a really vibrant area. There's a lot of places where you can shop and dine and get some drinks. There's some really old architecture here along the bay and lots of renovated buildings. It's super clean, and there's parks all over the place where they throw events on the weekends. I didn't see any bums or homeless people anywhere, but they probably keep them out of sight. Just very peachy, clean, and safe. Good job, downtown Pensacola. When you leave Pensacola and start heading along the coast, you first cross a bridge and head to the neat little city of Gulf Breeze. There's only 6,500 people here. This place is at the far western tip of what they call the Fairmont Peninsula. It's not an island, but it feels like one. There's nowhere to add more houses here, so they come at a premium. A decent house here would set you back about $500,000. The neighborhoods here are all very nice and charming, and there's a lot of places to shop and go out to eat. I really like Gulf Breeze. The night I was here, I sat at the Bridge Bar at the tip of the peninsula and overlooked Pensacola Bay with a nice, stiff breeze in my face. That's downtown Pensacola in the background. Gulf Breeze, it's a really happening little community with great schools. But who taught these construction workers how to stack construction cones? What the? Come on, Florida people. When you leave Gulf Breeze, you cross another bridge and come to Pensacola Beach. It's what you would think it is for being a resort town and all. Lots of restaurants and hotels and fun things for kids to do. I sat out at the Casino Beach Bar and looked out over the water. It's really neat here in this section on the Gulf. This is actually a south-facing beach, so sunsets don't go directly out over the water. But they're still nifty. Folks here claim to have the whitest sand beaches in the entire world. I don't know if anyone can actually measure that or not, but according to the internet, the sand is 99% silica that moved all the way here from the Appalachian Mountains 400 miles away. I have to say, I've never seen beach sand quite like it. I found it didn't stick to my skin like other beaches I had been to. Normandy, Acapulco, Waikiki. And the water. This part of Florida is known for its emerald water. I can confirm that there are indeed shades of emerald in those waves. According to the internet, the water up here has microscopic plankton which produce chlorophyll. The chlorophyll looks emerald, especially with the white sand underneath. Cool, huh? Pensacola Beach is fairly clean in the off-season, although apparently this is some sort of women's napkin. Yuck. Now we're going to leave Pensacola and head to Panama City. It's about 100 miles due east along the Gulf. Along the way, there's various small to medium-sized beach towns, a bunch of tourist traps, long stretches of white sandy beach, and communities that vary from really nice to sort of old and beat up. Here's a neighborhood just south of Pensacola Beach, right along the water. I was not impressed, but hey, you're right along the water. Apparently, up and down the Redneck Riviera, developers are removing hundreds of beach houses just like this and replacing them with grade A 4-story McMansions that are owned by corporations that are then going to rent them out to places like Airbnb. This is the future of Florida, right here, happening right now. There's just fewer and fewer locals who live along the beaches now. It's all out-of-towners. To make things worse, all these out-of-towners are trying to eliminate parking and increase tolls on bridges and enact whatever zoning laws they can pass to try to keep people off their beach. Their beach, everyone. They don't even live here. What the hell? As you head east, leaving the Pensacola Metro, you come to places like Fort Walton Beach, population 22,000. This is what that looks like. Everyone's heard of Destin. This is also on the way to Panama City. This place is super fancy. Look at this view of the Intracoastal Highway. Right there in the foreground is Crab Island, where tons of people park their boats. I can only imagine how nuts this place is on a major holiday. I actually looked up the hotel rates for the 4th of July. They're like $900 2 months out. What the? All down this coast, it's getting more and more expensive and more crowded. Walton County, where we are now, was recently called the 6th fastest growing county in the nation, everyone. Ouch. Eventually, if you keep driving east or southish, you come to Panama City proper. Now this place is all fucked up. I'm not even lying. We'll get to that part in a minute. But coming into the trip, I had wondered, would Panama City be trashier than Pensacola? The answer is yes. Right now we're entering Panama City from the north, or west, whatever direction it is. You're in Laguna Beach. As you come into Panama City on the main drag, it gets more and more crowded. This whole main stretch right here in Panama City along the coast goes way down the shore. You've got 14 miles of this all the way to the end of the Strand. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on, and I could do this for a minute and it still wouldn't be enough, and on and on and on. It was a Saturday in the off season, but it was still pretty crazy. This place basically looks like a humongous Myrtle Beach, but a teeny bit classier. A teeny bit. Barely. Oh, I saw tons of trashy people. It just felt a little safer, that's all. I also hardly saw any bums or homeless people, and I drove around this place for like an entire day. Florida does a good job of hiding their homeless. I mean, you can't be a tourist draw and have homeless people everywhere, can you? Oh wait, San Francisco. Panama City's beach area has large crowds, huge condos and hotels and rides and putt-putt and touristy stuff. Seems like way too drama to bring the kids, but I could see younger couples enjoying their time here. It wasn't always like this here, though. In the 70s and 80s, Panama City was home to small hotels and family-owned businesses. It was busy in the summer, but not crazy. But in the early 90s, they began to market themselves as a spring break destination. The goal was to bring more money into town. There just weren't enough people here, they said. Well, they got what they wished for, and it just about brought this place to its knees. MTV came in and turned this place into the spring break capital of the world. For 25 years, this place was just absolutely bonkers. This was home to Girls Gone Wild, people. But it was all too much. All the crime and the drugs and the chaos here was just out of control. It got so bad here that locals tried to pass a law to ban spring break here forever. Well, MTV eventually moved on, and Hurricane Michael came through a couple years ago, and now it's much more quiet. Of course, in the middle of all this beach mess, there's a Waffle House. Everywhere in the South needs a Waffle House.
It's too bad Panama City isn't the main place to party anymore. I would totally go to all the clubs.
Mappy, you're thirsty. Get out of here.
Hey!
Panama City Beach itself is sort of okay. Panama City sand isn't nearly as special as Pensacola sand. Just saying. Looks like regular beach sand to me. There was certainly a lot more trash on the beach here. And the water is emeraldy, but maybe not as emeraldy as in Pensacola. As soon as you leave Panama City Beach, it gets weird fast. But how does the rest of Panama City look these days? In a word, rough. As soon as you leave the tourist part, it gets run down fast. The poverty rate here is on par with the poverty rate in Pensacola, but the hoods here are strikingly different. There's a lot more space. In Pensacola, the hoods look like tropical ghettos. Here, the areas look far more desolate, and the rundown areas stand out among the uninhabited lots. The place reminds me of a hood I know of near San Bernardino, California, a place called Muscoy. Compared with most other coastal communities in Florida, Panama City's unique because it's mostly working class people who live here, not wealthy retired people. Hurricane Michael came through here as a borderline Category 5 in 2018, and it really had an impact on this place. For some reason, out near the coast where the hotels are, the damage wasn't as bad as it was here inland, about 10 miles from the coast. In some parts of town, every street you drive on has homes that are abandoned. There's still blue tarps up on the roofs, and there's markings indicating the place is condemned. 4 years later, they're all still here, like dead flowers in a field of weeds. It's gradually getting better here, but nowhere the same as it once was. Folks struggle to continue to try to rebuild their lives here. And I hear after the hurricane, there was a lot of looting and shootings and chaos in Panama City too. So you have this massive hurricane, and then the pandemic struck, and both of those really changed this place a lot. A lot of people here were already struggling before the hurricane, and then the hurricane made it worse by destroying a lot of homes, which meant the rent shot up. It went from $800 a month to $2,000 a month to live here. So a lot of people left. Many even went north deeper into the panhandle where it's cheaper. One bartender told me he can totally tell there's less locals in town now. On off nights, there's just far fewer people in town these days. And public housing still hasn't been rebuilt since the hurricane, and that's created a serious issue with homelessness. A lot of people are living in cars or on friends' couches. There's a lot more homeless people in Panama City than you might think. They're just not in plain sight. But Panama City's home, so they're not leaving. You can bet all this loss is going to mean a huge opportunity for those big companies and investors to swipe in and develop the area and then jack up the rent all over town even more. The paper mill in Panama City is set to close soon, maybe even by the time you watch this video. The mill shutting down is going to cost a lot more jobs in the area, and that's going to put an additional strain on many lives here. Part of the reason the paper mill's closing is, again, because of Hurricane Michael. There's huge areas all over this part of the state where the forest was destroyed. You can still see piles of dead trees all over the area 4 years later. Supposedly, Jimmy Buffett's going to be opening up another one of his Margaritaville communities in Panama City soon. Maybe that'll bring in some more jobs. Are there nice parts of Panama City? Some. There was a nice part of town along the bay on the east side of town. But it's Florida. I'm sure anything near the water is nice in this state. On a bright note, sort of, downtown Panama City is charming in its own way. There's a few blocks of not too bad. Here's what that looks like. I guess there's enough to do for most folks, but just a block away from the main street, there's vacant storefronts and blight. It sure does get rough fast in this city, and that's sad. While out and about in Panama City, I got to see a little bit of town as a tourist, because, I'm not always a journalist. I went to a redneck bar called Foghorns, a place so cool it has bullet holes in the window. Pool, darts, music, spirits. The women get after it on the dance floor here, and the dudes wear whatever this is. Great people, totally my kind of place. The bartender here told me there's a lot of people moving here from Ohio. So that explains the extra level of trashy. JK Ohio and JK trashy people. JK. You missed? Oh no. Of course I had to take in around a mini golf. From the 8th hole at Emerald Falls Family Rec Center, I could see Panama Beach in all its glory. You could hear the screams from the people on the rides, the screams from the drunk, angry people, and the loud mufflers. I said the loud mufflers! Did you hear that? At night, I stayed at the Lolly on the beach. Great owners and steps from the ocean. My room was a combination of old Florida and Mexico. Here, I was able to relax and think about the trip in its entirety. Everything changes, and this part of Florida has a lot to deal with in the near future. It's a stretch of beach that's super pretty in so many places, but has an uphill battle trying to fix its problems without changing its culture. It'll be interesting to see what happens down the road. Redneck Riviera, Florida. That's it. Okay, everybody. So right now we have Savannah, who is a Panama City native. How are you, Savannah?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So right now I am talking to you because I was in Panama City. I did the whole Redneck Riviera, and I went down to Panama City for a couple days and drove around and checked the place out. And I understand that you've been there for a long time, and you might have some insight into what it's like to live there.
Mm-hmm. My whole life, I have been a Panama City resident, as has my mom and my grandmother and my great-grandparents. So we've been here for quite a while.
Well, so you're the perfect person to talk to, because I always like to ask people how a place has changed. And I know Panama City's gone through a lot of change.
Quite a bit.
Tell me about some of the changes you've seen there.
Well, the biggest one would be after Hurricane Michael. So it's very strange and surreal because there's so much of it that looks completely different to the first 20 years of my memory of my own hometown. So much has changed. Some areas completely gone, completely rebuilt. The landscape altered forever, for sure. It's really kind of surreal, and it's finally we're coming up on 4 years, the anniversary. It's only finally started to look normal again, but a new normal, not anything like it was before, but it's becoming a new normal, and places are starting to become more recognizable. But it's very strange, and there were a lot of changes happening before the hurricane. Our downtown area was starting to really be revitalized, and and built up, and the St. Andrews area the same, and then just complete and utter devastation afterwards. And it's still, you'll still drive by places and be like, oh, I remember. I remember that building used to be there. Remember when we went here? Yeah. It's crazy though.
So like the neighborhoods that I saw over by the paper mill, like on that side of town, I saw a lot of tarps on roofs. I saw what looked to be pretty rough areas. Was that like that before the hurricane, and then the hurricane made it worse? Okay.
That area of town is a very old community. It was established in the very late 1800s. It is quite literally across the train tracks. So it was never like the up and coming neighborhood, but no, the tarps and the abandoned houses and the dilapidated buildings, that is definitely a product of the hurricane, and people who were renting in that area, and then it just became too much. The landlords, the people who own the properties, were not going to put in the money to fix them, and so a lot of them were vacated, and they have just been left that way ever since.
So, Panama City seemed like it was kind of like improving a bit. The hurricane came in and just wiped out all that progress, and now y'all are trying to pick up the pieces again.
I think that's a fair statement to make. Yeah.
How did spring break? So, my memory of Panama City as a high school kid was MTV Spring Break, and seeing Panama City on television for years. I think it went on and on and on. Put you all on the map, and then from what I hear, it was too much. Panama City could not handle that, and then at some point it was like, enough is enough. MTV leaves, everybody leaves, and then it was like, okay, things have quieted down now. But did Panama City ever really recover from like 20 years of like spring break chaos?
I don't know that we will ever truly overcome that reputation. Some of the things that went on, the stories, the crazy stories, and the things that that were reported on, I don't know that we will ever truly recover from that image, but we are desperately trying to. And there was a real effort, sort of when it reached a climax, a combustion point, where locals and residents came together and said, this is not important enough to our economy that we are willing to tolerate this behavior anymore. This needs to change. And they put some new laws on the books. So, between a certain time period, during those prime spring break, that window, there is no alcohol permitted on the beaches. And a real effort was made to attract families, and really try to make it a more wholesome family vacation destination, and really try to recover from that, quite frankly, just like trashy, nasty, college, hedonistic spring break reputation. But I think that's something that we're going to have to work on for years to come. I really don't know if we're ever going to be able to dissolve that connection that comes to mind when you say spring break, Panama City Beach.
I mean, I was there in May. So clearly I missed the spring break thing. It seemed not over the top, but it was pretty rowdy, even for like an off season. It was a weekend, I believe. I'm trying to remember now. I think it was a Saturday. But there was a lot of hubbub going on, and a lot of noise, very loud, and I cannot imagine what it would have been like back in the mid 90s.
If you're local, you stay away. You will not find any locals out on the beach during spring break. And it's really unfortunate to be kind of like precluded from your own hometown for a certain period of time, but it's just no locals want want to deal with it. That's not what Panama City is to us. But, the summertime, when it's like May, June, when there's a lot of families that come out and people who are just really there to truly enjoy the beach, and that no local begrudges the tour. It's a gorgeous place. The beach, they call it the Emerald Coast for a reason. It's gorgeous. It's temperate. You can just like go out to the jetties and, watch a pod of dolphins swim in. And it's one of the most peaceful, tranquil experiences you can have. But that is the summertime, when it's families coming, people who are there to truly enjoy the nature of it and the beauty of it, not people who are there to just, cut loose and let off steam. It's almost sort of a what happens in Vegas mentality. It's like they think they can come here, behave however they want to, laws don't matter, common decency doesn't matter, and then they're gonna, pack it up and, go back to the university of wherever they came from. So the summertime culture is very different than the spring break culture. And I think you'll find that most locals would agree that, the summertime is very pleasant. We don't have any problem with people coming out, to enjoy all that. It's the people who come to disrespect it and trash it that we have a problem with.
What about like are you a snowbird destination in the wintertime for all those folks?
Yes.
Okay. So, but
Yes.
they're going to be more calm. They're like old people, right? Like they're okay. So it's just pretty much March and April that can be do not enter in Panama City.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's not too bad. You got 1/6 of your time there. So like a lot of the themes that I'm talking about when it comes to Florida involves old Florida, new Florida, affordability. I was up in Pensacola and I had heard all about how it's, becoming unaffordable for folks up there. People are moving into the state. You're the most popular state to go to. And, it's frustrating. A lot of people are getting pushed out, longtime folks. Is that an issue in Panama City as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You will be hard pressed to find any home that's going for less than $275, $300. And you're talking like a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath. The housing market is crazy. So many homes were destroyed. It's just a supply and demand problem. The supply was, reduced by about 75%, and you have all these people. There is a real influx to the area. We've got a lot of housing developments that they're trying to build just as quickly as they can, but the prices are not. It's really unfortunate. It is pushing out a lot of people who were here for a long time and trying to remain here. So many people left after the hurricane and have not come back. So I really think there is a lot of turnover, a lot of new blood, if you will. People coming from out of state, a lot of people coming from California, a lot of people coming from Oregon. And then we also have a military base close by. So there's always been that influx of people as well. But I would say that definitely Panama City is the same across other areas of Florida, where the housing is becoming less and less affordable, and uniquely to our area because we lost so much after the hurricane. It's really hard for new families coming in to be able to afford the housing that's going up.
Where are all the people going? The people fleeing Panama City that can't afford it? Do you know?
I think people are trying to go to places that have a similar feel. So we're very like lots of wide open space, where there are still some of those similarities to here, as far as land to walk around on, room to breathe. I think people are seeking kind of a continuity with that, but probably the surrounding areas if they can. But the problem is they're finding the same issues there. Like you said, you started in Pensacola. It's kind of the same as far as trying to find housing and places to set up living and stuff like that. So I don't know that there's any one area they're congregating to. And I hope they come back. we're trying to rebuild, and I would like to think make it better than it was, like still trying to follow that trajectory of improving it. So hopefully they all come back, but
Yeah, you seem sad or I don't know how to put it, but are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Are you depressed about it, or are you just being realistic about the current state of affairs in Panama City?
I'm definitely, I would consider myself a realist. So while I long for it to be like it was, I don't know that that's ever going to happen. So I suppose I'm, just a little bit nostalgic about it. There's something nice about like the families who have been here a long time, knowing each other, knowing our shared history. And so sometimes it is a little sad when there's, like new people coming in and maybe they don't realize how special something is the same way that, another person or family who's been here for a long time does. So I think I wouldn't say pessimistic exactly, but I would like a return to that, like where people feel very rooted here and like they have a stake in it. But I don't think that that's going to happen.
Yeah, newcomers are going to come in and claim it as their own, and
Yeah,
raise taxes and put in new ordinances, and that it's happening all over the place.
yeah. So I think part of collectively what a lot of people are feeling is we're glad you're here. Thanks, thanks for coming, but please don't try to make it like what you just left. Clearly there was a reason why you left it. So please don't come here and try to make it like what you just walked out of. Mm-hmm. We like it the way we like it. We have it set up the way we like it. Feel free to enjoy. Don't change it.
Good luck with that. They change everything.
Yeah.
Are you going to stick around? Are you going to stay in Panama City for forever and ever? Or, do you have any idea on, is this your home forever?
I love to see new places and experience other people's places, and but this is home for better or worse. This is home. This is where my family is, where my roots are, and I love it here. So I may go somewhere else temporarily, but this is always home base. This is always where I'll be.
That was very insightful and very meaningful. Like I interview a lot of people, and I can tell it comes from the heart, Savannah.
It does. It does.
And I started to really like a lot of Florida that I hadn't really experienced. I think, I like the Panhandle more than really anywhere else. I mean, I do like Miami, but like the whole middle, all that shit around Polk County and Lakeland and Osceola and then like over on the coast, like, all the stuff over Palm Beach, West Palm, like all that's way too crowded. I don't have to tell you, but I really, really like how old Florida is still hanging on. And it's just too bad that, it's changing so much because old Florida was amazing and there's not much old Florida left.
No. Well, over in Panama City, we're trying to hold on to it for dear life. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Usually, when I chat with people about where I'm from, um, it it some people are like, oh wow, you might as well just be like really southern Alabama, and some people are like, oh, that nasty Panama City. So I'm happy that you got to experience the parts of it that I love.
Yeah, I grew up, did not have country in my life. I grew up in like a LA suburb that was just pretty much, cul-de-sacs and neighborhoods, and we didn't have nature. And it took me a while to get out of California before I started to appreciate like, country and different types of folks. And after kind of living in North Carolina, I've really fallen in love with just space and simple, more simple. I'm not a fancy guy. I like, I'm quarter redneck. I like to do redneck stuff. I like to get after it a little bit. I like nice, honest people that are hardworking but simple. I'm not impressed by fancy. And so I like that part of Florida that's just chill, that's not all glitz and glamour. That's not all skyscrapers and condos and crowds and fancy. I like, real people that just live just average lives. And there's a lot of that up in the panhandle, and I just like it up there way better than the rest of the state. So, yeah. All right, guys. So joining me right now on a call, this is Michael, who lives in Pensacola. He's lived there his whole life. What's going on, Michael?
Nothing much. Just got off work and ready to talk to Nick.
Yeah, I'm talking to Michael. Yeah, I appreciate that you gave me some pretty good background info when I went to Pensacola. My goal was to start in Pensacola and then head east, southeast down to Panama City to do like a Redneck Riviera tour to see what that was all about. And you gave me some good, valuable info and kind of told me what I should look for when I was in Pensacola. So I appreciate that.
Gotcha. No problem.
Yeah, I mean, the beach is beautiful, about as beautiful as I thought it would be. The downtown area is really cool in Pensacola, but man, there's some rough areas there. I did not expect that. You don't hear about poverty in rough areas. Pensacola doesn't come up as a place I've heard of that's rough, but what's going on with all that?
Yeah, so Pensacola definitely has some really nice patches that you may see on some advertisement, but there's definitely some rough patches in Pensacola. So something you always have to take into account when you're looking at an area around here is just street by street, block by block. There's a lot of areas that are up and coming. There's certain areas that you may not want to drive through at night, unfortunately. Cervantes itself is usually a kind of a cutoff. So if you're going down Cervantes Street, the more you go west in Pensacola, the more sketchy things can be. You may not want to be there at night. Things get pretty interesting what they're trying to do with the road by creating those little dividers and whatnot as well, and all the stoplights as well. But yeah, people may not think about it, but Pensacola definitely does have some rough areas. Some people do say that a lot of things changed after Hurricane Katrina. A lot of people moved away from New Orleans into the Pensacola area. And Pensacola is definitely experiencing some growing pains with a lot of the people moving from different major cities into the area as well, because it was a cheaper option for so long.
Yeah, I mean, affordable housing is a problem all across the country. And, I think you told me that, the folks are coming in from out of state and they're driving up the housing prices, and longtime Pensacola people just can't afford to live there.
You really can't. Like all the new construction, if you look at new construction within the city limits, it's mainly geared towards people who don't necessarily make the average Pensacola income. I've been very fortunate in my career that I was able to buy a house in the certain areas of Pensacola that are pretty nice to live in. But unfortunately, most of my neighbors who bought new construction houses in the city limits are not from Pensacola. They're not born and raised here. Out of the new construction homes that I bought into, I'm the only one from Pensacola itself. So that speaks a lot. But you definitely do see, if you ever checked out the Zillow prices, there's definitely a much higher value of home that you can buy in Pensacola for new construction. And then the low construction or the cheaper, more affordable housing gets outbid so quickly by so many buyers. Definitely. There are definitely some more industries that came to Pensacola, such as Navy Federal. I don't know if you saw that, but it's a major bank out there in the Beulah area. They brought a lot of banking jobs. When we had the pandemic, that definitely brought a lot of new people who work from home. So there's a lot of people in like around the Joe Patty's area. They mainly just work from home, and that's how they make their income. So they brought outside money into the area.
And it's like that. I mean, I would imagine Pensacola is just a small example of what's going on across your whole state. I just heard it was the most unaffordable state to live in now.
Yeah, it's not just because of the home prices, it's because of the wages. Because the people make such less than they would say in California or New York. It's just more expensive to live here. The jobs pay less in general, and now you have higher home prices on top of lower wages. It's just not a good recipe.
I mean, I don't blame people for wanting to go there for cheaper living than down in the southern part of the state and the coast. It's probably cheaper in Pensacola than it would be if you were going to try to live in the Miami area or in the Tampa area, right?
Very, very different. So you have an entire different type of, I don't want to say crowd, but it's way more expensive the further you go south in Florida. I know a lot of people have recently moved to the Sarasota area, the Tampa area. That's been rapidly growing. Prices there, multi-million-dollar homes for nice little bungalows. But if you go in that bottom quadrant, the bottom right of Florida, that's when you get those very expensive home prices that you necessarily don't see here. One of the most expensive houses to ever be listed, I don't know if you saw, but there's an area called 30A, and it was listed for $25 million. That's the most expensive listing in the Panhandle area, North Florida. So that's record breaking, and that's all relatively new as well.
I don't blame people for wanting to live there because of the beach. I found Pensacola's beach as beautiful as advertised. The water was as emeraldy as advertised. The sand was just a magical shade of white, and the feeling of it. Now, Panama City, I don't know if you guys consider yourselves like rivals at all, but they're also up there near you. Their beaches are far less impressive. The sand is far less gorgeous. It's way trashier down there.
So I did live for a brief period in Panama City Beach, and they have that strip on the water full of condos. There's a lot of, it was kind of known of a spring break area. It's a much younger, partier crowd. They don't take as good care of the beach. When you went to Pensacola Beach, you went there, you got to see the dunes in certain parts. It's more of a excluded type of area. If you avoid the area with the big beach ball, there's definitely a lot of empty spaces. You can have the beach to yourself. Panama City Beach is just not that place at all. But yeah, I don't see them as rivals.
Downtown was really cool. What else does Pensacola have that I maybe didn't talk about?
So you definitely have the downtown area. You have the main Palafox Street that has all the little restaurants and bars that some people like to attend. Pensacola, how would I say, it has a very small city vibe to it. So it's still a relatively small city. It's not too crowded. I don't know if you realize, but traffic isn't too bad here as is in certain other parts of Florida. You don't have to really drive a few hours to go to work any which way. The taxes are relatively lower. You have, again, less people here, so you don't have to worry about sharing, parking spaces. I know sometimes when you go to South Florida, you have to pay per hour for parking. Here, you went to Pensacola Beach, you have to pay for parking. That's a great thing as well. Relative to the different areas of Florida, it's still affordable, even though it's rapidly raising in prices. So you do have the Naval Air Station here as well. I don't know if you know that. It has the big museum with all the airplanes from the military that were decommissioned and whatnot. It's very well known for that. Again, we do have the beaches. You have a lot of little forks and little history throughout Pensacola that some people really love history. I know I should know it, but I really don't. I just enjoy it. I know it's there, but I know at one point this used to be a colony of, like, say, Spain. And then you have the French who ruled over here and a few others. We always known as like the Five Flags. So we have a mixture of different cultures. I think you can see that in our architecture a little bit as well. It tries to kind of look kind of like New Orleans, but also sometimes you have like a Mediterranean type house in certain areas as well. So, but if you just want a place where you can work, say from home, if you have a nice income, or you have a job that you can make decent amount of money for Pensacola terms, it's a relatively nice place to live. The only thing that could be lacking is public schools for sure.
You sound like a realtor.
I'm not.
I really like Gulf Breeze a lot. Like, I mean, I walked around that whole island, peninsula a little bit.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of people who really adore Gulf Breeze. It has by far some of the best schools for public schools in the area. It's really close by. It's just a 3-mile bridge over. So I do know a lot of people who basically work in Pensacola, but they live in Gulf Breeze because it's so close. It's not part of Escambia County. It's part of the Santa Rosa School District, so it's completely separate. You do have a lot more families and that type of vibe. I know you brought up the west side of Pensacola. I know a few months ago it was one of the most rapidly appreciating areas in Florida, that Brownsville area, when you get closer to the west side of Pensacola. So it's something that is still getting developments in. Again, I'm not for sure why. This panhandle area, I don't know if you realize it, it's just not as developed as South Florida in general. So it's still, if you want to own a part of Florida and want to live here, it's relatively cheap. But yeah, if you definitely see further south, you see a lot more people, a lot more developments, but you don't really see that here in Pensacola.
I appreciate getting to chat with you. That was really helpful. I think you put a lot of things into perspective. You know Pensacola very well, I have to say. Are you looking to move and need advice? I do consulting. That's right. I'll sit down and talk about where the next perfect place for you and your family should be. I do it all the time. Together, let's find you a new home that's safe and checks all your boxes. You can get my email in the description to find out how I can help you find your perfect relocation. And I can also help you find your new house too. Email me and I'll work with you on not just helping you figure out where to move, but I can help you find your perfect home too. That's right. I know awesome, reliable agents all over the country, and I'd love to connect you to somebody who can help you search for that perfect home. Hey everyone. So it's pretty clear by now that elected leaders aren't going to help you. If you don't like what you saw in this video, demanding change won't work. You're going to have to do it on your own. If you want to be safe and want your community to be a place where people want to live, you're going to have to clean the place up yourselves. You're going to have to work with your friends and neighbors to lower crime. Politicians clearly don't care as much anymore. It's up to us.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.